Low elo is the Wild West of Valorant. From throwers to smurfs and everything in between, you need the best agents to help you climb all the way to the highest ranks of play. That's why in this video, we're going to go over the low elo tier list for patch 9.1 and break down all the best characters that you could be playing. And are you sick of losing games from bad teammates? Well, here at SkillCapped, we turn your frustrating losses into satisfying wins. The hard reality is that you don't have the aim to carry your terrible teammates, but in our brand new Master Calm Aim course, we give you the aiming secrets to acquire great aim and allow you to carry even the worst of teammates in your ranked games. Combine this with our unlock wall hacks and move like a god course, and you'll be the complete package capable of adapting to any lobby and still managing to win. Check out our free rank calculator on the website, the rank that you're guaranteed to get or your money back. It might seem crazy to give you a guaranteed refund if you don't rank up, but that's how strongly we believe we can help you climb and reach your goals. So check it out right now down below. And we're going to kick it off with the C tier. Now, keep in mind, these characters are not unplayable in low elo. In fact, they can be amazing, but you're going to have to work a little bit harder to get value out of them. And first up on the list is actually Harbor. Now, Harbor can be a phenomenal character, especially when you're pairing him with another controller. And also when you combine him with characters like Gekko, getting some of those plants secure. But overall, Harbor is just awkward in low elo for a lot of reasons. Number one, good luck getting two controllers in low elo. That's just the reality of it. And most of the time, the complex strategies that Harbor can enable are just a little bit too teamwork oriented for random people to use in ranked. Yes, you could go for some solo plays, but you need a team that treats you more like a duelist and in the flex slot than in the controller slot, which is just not going to happen all that often. I think if you're really great on Harbor, you can definitely make him work, but he's going to have some problems and some awkwardness, and that's why he's at the bottom of C tier. Next up is Astra. And Astra's down here for some of the same reasons. Astra's typically best as a duo smoker in a duo controller setup, which we're going to run into those same problems. And in addition to that, Astra is going to be better with teamwork cohesion and trying to synergize with a lot of Astra's abilities. Whether it's a suck to pull people off the spike, whether you're trying to combo it with an ability like paint shells from Raze, there's a lot of really great synergy stuff you can do with Astra that you're much less likely to see in low elo in ranked. And in general, Astra is just gonna be worse in all of ranked play than she is gonna be in pro play for many of these synergy reasons and teamwork reasons, but she still can be amazing in the right hands, and there's still solo plays you can make with Astra's kit. So if you become somewhat of an Astra specialist, I think you could play her in most of the situations you would play any other dome smoker. Now, the next one is gonna be a little bit of a weird one, but hear me out. Yoru. Now, we all know that Yoru has some of the highest win rates in the highest ranks of play in Radiant, and there are some players that just completely dominate with Yoru in the highest ranks of play. So how could I say that he's not a great low elo pick? And it's actually partially because of that he's not, and there's many other reasons as well. The thing about Yoru is he really thrives when there's a certain set understanding of how the game should be played, and he breaks that understanding with pressure, with flashes, with characters that could be real or couldn't be real. It's constantly tricking players' senses and basically pressuring them to make the wrong decision. But the problem in low elo especially is that players are pressured to make the wrong decision all the time, with rather simple and straightforward bits of pressure. And trying to trick people into making the wrong play is just less necessary because players are not gonna be playing the right way a lot. There's gonna be a lot of mistakes for you to capitalize on. You don't need to force these mistakes open, and you don't even know how players are gonna react on average to what you're doing or implying with your play because it's a lot more random the type of opponent you're gonna run into. Now, I'm not saying that there aren't objectively powerful things that you can do with Yoru that doesn't really matter how your opponents respond to it, but I will say that there are other characters that can do those set things a bit better, and Yoru really shines in that environment where players are responding well in a way that makes sense for them to act. They're doing their job properly, and you put a wrench in that plan instead of putting a wrench in some random plan. The other problem is Yoru is also just really, really hard to play perfectly, and there is a huge gap between being a Yoru that gets some value and a Yoru that hard carries, and that gap is massive. And I'm not saying that you shouldn't go on that journey, but I am saying if you want to climb out of low elo in the easiest possible way, there are many other characters that could do it easier for you, and then you could maybe lock Yoru later down the line. But he still is a character that has massive carry potential, as is most duelists on this list. It's just gonna be a little bit harder, I think, through Yoru than some other duelists right now. Next up on the list, we have Deadlock, and Deadlock has is actually a pretty great character at just denying rushes, which I have said many times is just super strong to force people to stop a rush or slow down a rush dramatically. Because the lower in rank you get, the less successful rotates become, right? Because not everyone rotates properly. People waste a ton of utility and then don't actually take the site, so then they don't have any utility later on. Or, you know, some people rotate, some people stay. On the way through the rotate, one person lurks. The whole thing crumbles, right? It doesn't actually work in a consistent way. So there's a lot of things that are easy about Deadlock to counter that low elo players are not doing. Now, the reason that I put Deadlock all the way down here is not because she's weak, it's just because the power discrepancy comparing her to the other Sentinels is pretty sizable, especially when we talk about free value that you get in the low elos. Like, you're gonna get a crazy amount of free value from a Cypher or a Killjoy than you would a Deadlock. It's not necessarily free. You have to really understand the character. You need more team-oriented actions or players playing off your utility a bit more, and I think your carry potential is capped at a lot less, especially when we talk about things like retakes, and your ultimate power level I think is lower than something like Killjoy's lockdown. So overall, she's a fine pick, just I think lacking a little bit in lower elo. Now, next up is Kayo, one of the best characters in the highest ranks of play, but Kayo suffers from a lot of problems, I think, in low elo. Number one is players not playing off of information or denial of abilities in the right way. Like, you could get information that a whole bunch of people are grouped up in one area, but that doesn't mean your teammates will rotate off of that or try to make a play off of that or try to take more space because of that. Most of the time, they're not going to do anything. The time's just going to tick down and you're not going to get as much value as you otherwise would. Not to mention doing lineups and things like that with the pop flashes on Kayo is going to require you to at least be dueled with one other person, because good luck getting randoms to do that with you. And then you yourself are going to have to learn a lot of these lineups to get value out of it. So I think all of that combined means that when we talk about initiators, Kayo is going to get value harder than a lot of these other ones that just get a lot of really easy and free value. And yeah, for that reason, I'm putting him in C tier, even though he's just literally one of the most powerful characters in the game. Not for low elo though. The last up in the C tier, we have Breach, and I'm putting him all the way down here, not because he is weak or anything like that. It's just for solo queue low elo, I think he just lags a little bit behind some of the other initiators that provide some easy value that you yourself can follow up on. Breach is really gonna just be best in a team environment or in a duo queue environment. Now, if you're in low elo duo queuing with somebody and you're making sure to consistently set up flash plays, stun plays, push plays, duo with someone that's aggressive, duo with the Neon as an example, you can get a crazy amount of value. But doing it by yourself, I think Breach lags behind. So in that set duo, he gets way pushed up, but in that solo, I would put him down here. Now we're moving up to the B tier, and there is a ton of characters in the B tier in no particular order that are really strong. Maybe they're good in some situations and not others. Maybe they're not like one-trick characters in low elo, but in the maps that they're good in or the situations they're good in, they're phenomenal. And first up, we have Chamber. Chamber has a lot going for him as a sentinel that can do multiple jobs, and in the chaotic nature of ranked, it's nice to have a character that can be that top frag, can be that high frag character, can lurk really well, but also lock down space and lock down a site. You can push up to aggressive positions, deny rotations because of where you're playing. You get to take first contact, teleport away. You get a lot of free eco rounds with really powerful weapons that outrange enemies. And it just makes getting a lot of kills easier than some other characters that you can play. Now, is he gonna get as much free value as other sentinels on the roster? No, but he has a much higher ceiling of carry than those characters. And you can pretty much take over a lobby by yourself. And I think that Chamber is just grossly underrated in general. So I'm putting him in the B tier. Next up is Vyse, and Vyse is another character that is just really underpicked compared to her power level. Super strong, capable of shutting down a lot of points, but also being able to be aggressive and push in aggressive. I think she gets to do like a lot of the stalling and delay things that like a Deadlock would be able to do, but also gets to be much better in retake situations, much better in situations where they're trying to synergize with the team or just take an advantage fight between between your ultimate, between your flashes. There's so much on Vyse that can set up some unfair advantage fights for you. And I know that she's not the most popular character in the world, but she probably should be played a lot more because of how strong she is. And if we're talking specifically about low elo, there is just some fights that you can set up that really are unwinnable for the enemy. You know, they walk into a place that they can't back up from, get flashed, easiest kill in the world. You just got to trade your utility for a free kill, and that's like all you can ask for. Next up, we have ISO, and ISO, you might be surprised, is down this low. And yes, ISO can carry pretty much any lobby he's in. We all know that, but there's a couple of requirements, right? You need great mechanical skill, really above and beyond mechanical skill on ISO to really carry and take over an entire lobby. And that is something that if you had on any character, you could really carry. And that's something that you're gonna have to constantly develop over time. So I'm not gonna say that you could just lock this character and just win every fight. Sometimes it can actually be a crutch where you play ISO too much, you're not developing your mechanical skill good enough, and you're winning like a 50-50 amount of fights, but you really should be winning more on a character that is designed to win these 50-50 fights. In addition, ever since that Phantom buff, we're seeing a lot more Phantoms, and ISO is better in the one-tap Vandal meta and not the spray heavy Phantom meta as much. It's not going to be something you're going to see all the time. I mean, like, just because we're seeing a trend doesn't mean like everyone is dropping the Vandal or anything like that. But in general, some of those free win fights you get when players just dink you in the head and then you dink them back, you're not going to have as much of that. But still, ISO can definitely carry in the right hands. He's a very momentum-based character as well, where like you could turn an early lead into just a takeover. So I'm putting him in the B tier. The next we have Viper, and Viper is going to be played and needed on some of the maps that she's great in. But outside of those, we wouldn't recommend just locking her every single game, right? I mean, she can work in low elo, everything can, but really there are going to be maps that she's absolutely necessary for, and then other maps that she is not really going to be played on. And I think that Viper is not going to be a character that is going to be 100% pick rate in your agent pool, even in low elo, but is definitely a character that you should learn if you want to be a dedicated controller main and you want to only play controllers. You need to know Viper for the maps that she is played on and good in. And yeah, in general, Viper provides a ton of value, consistent ability value that allow you to clutch rounds. Her ultimate's one of the best ultimates in the game. And I know it's going to take a little bit of time, but I would highly recommend learning lineups on this character because you could set up so many no-win situations where it doesn't matter how well the opponents aim or how they play it. If they don't play at a fast enough pace, they don't give themselves a chance to win up against the Viper that knows lineups. And that's one of the biggest problems with low elo players, is that they don't play at the right pace. Like, the clock is ticking down. They don't just clear enough fast enough, get to the bomb fast enough, tap the defuse fast enough to bait out the utility that they need to. They're playing way too slow, just expecting them to be able to defuse it on their own time. They just don't have that time. Viper feasts on that really well. And yeah, that's why you should really learn lineups, and you're going to be able to climb on this character. Next up, we have Sage. Recently got some big buffs, especially that heal buff. That self-heal buff is fantastic on the character. Being able to be a bit more aggressive on Sage and then heal yourself up. Take that hybrid controller duelist role a little bit. And she's also just generally good with the powerful ultimate that's reliable, being able to stop rushes, which I say is just so important in a controller. And yeah, overall just has a pretty balanced kit. Well, maybe not as powerful with her utility at denying on defense as characters like Killjoy and Cypher. Better, in my opinion, in retake situations with wall, especially if you don't get your wall forced. Being able to use wall to try to defuse is just really great. You can set up some situations where only Sage can win those situations. So that's all great. But really where I see Sage suffer is in that true controller role. Oftentimes, Sage is a lot easier to push through and bait out than other controllers are. Like, think about how difficult it is to deal with all of Killjoy's utility and then push onto a site. It's really difficult. You have to clear here, you have to clear there, especially if you don't have shocks or something like that. But with a Sage, you apply pressure, you bait out the slows, you bait out the wall, and then all of a sudden she's a sitting duck. And that can happen too quickly, and sometimes you just don't have the stopping power that some of these other characters have. And for those reasons, I'm putting her here. She doesn't give you as much free value, but she does give you some opportunities to just carry with proper gunplay and creating a separation in an engagement where some person pushes forward, some other people are stalled behind. So you got to make sure not to like blow your entire load of utility like right off the bat. But yeah, I think she's a great character. Don't get me wrong, just not quite up into A tier. Next up is Neon, and Neon is just kind of just dominating the meta right now. Incredibly busted of a character. Even after the 9.1 Neon nerfs, still just a crazy strong character with that first shot accuracy, being able to double slide, really dominant in the right hands. But Neon suffers from some of the same reasons I talked about with Yoru, where I think that Neon generally works better when there is a higher level of skill overall in the lobby with you and your opponents, people all playing by the same rules, and then Neon comes and breaks those rules, similar to how I talked about with Yoru. And she does have really high mechanical requirements as well. Neon isn't a character that's going to get you free kills. You need to know the right timing. You need to know when to take precise gunfights and when to run and dash them. And I really think that people are seeing Neon take over the meta in high elo. They just expect to lock Neon and then it's going to do all the work for you. You're just going to dominate because you're playing this broken character, right? But that's just not really the case. You definitely can carry with this character, but you're not necessarily going to be able to unless you have the right mechanics, you understand the timing of the battlefield as a whole, which requires higher game sense. And I also think that in a way, Neon can hurt your development. You're not learning the proper way to take duels in a traditional sense, similar to what we talked about with ISO, where if you rely too heavily on Neon, you could become someone that can only play Neon like in the higher elos, and you're worse on average at every other character. And I would much prefer you be someone that can play more traditional and then use Neon's strengths specifically because you understand what she does better than other characters, not someone that only can play Neon. Just as a development sort of thing, I don't think being a Neon one trick is the best for you in low elo to climb up. The last of the B tier, we have Omen. Now, Omen got a lot of his one ways gutted. He's still a great lurker and a great controller, but that is one of the ways that he got a lot of free value. I know I say that a lot, but free value is great. When an ability can get you a free gunfight, a free engagement, a free kill, and you don't really have to work for it, that's amazing. And some of that was taken away from Omen. Now, still though, Paranoia is one of the most powerful abilities in the game. Don't get it twisted. It's so strong. Typically clears out entire lanes, allows you to take point for free. Really, really great. His ultimate's really, really strong. There's a lot of plays you can make on Omen uniquely. So I don't want to just underplay Omen. There are some controllers I think are either easier to play or just more powerful in a solo low elo environment. But if you master Omen, you can definitely dominate with Omen. He's still phenomenal for sure. Now we're gonna move up to A tier. These are characters that are just phenomenal all the time. When you play them, they're really, really great. And first off, we have to talk about Cypher. And I know Cypher did receive some pretty sizable nerfs in 9.1. That half a second before the trap actually kicks in and one extra ult point needed to use his ult. These are big changes and I don't want to underplay them, but Cypher was the most dominant established sentinel, maybe neck and neck with Killjoy, and this is not enough, especially in low elo, to dethrone him. Oftentimes that little bit of counterplay is not going to be enough for players to actually react and not get farmed by a Cypher. And most of the time Cypher is going to just be an uncounterable threat unless you have a very specific comp that could deal with it. Cypher also could be very creative in the way that he plays and retakes between your camera, your cages, the ability to lurk. There's a lot of really powerful things you can do on Cypher to take over a game and a lobby, and a lot to learn. I think Cypher's a great character to learn the game through and get better as you climb. And yeah, I think he's also just objectively very strong, so I'm putting him in A tier. Next up in A, we have Skye. Skye's like the do-it-all initiator, being able to flash, clear angles, gather info, clear out close angles with your dog, and heal up your team, especially on those pistol rounds. There is a ton Skye can do. Skye can do a little bit of everything, and everything that she does is really strong. There's not a bad ability. The ultimate's really great. Skye just is good in pretty much every team composition. I can't think of a team composition that is worse with a Skye in it, especially in low elo. And yeah, I know that there are going to be some things that you're going to have to learn over time. Skye isn't the easiest character to master, but you have all the tools available to you to really make a high impact in your games. I would say that she does play a little bit bit better with a little more synergy. So having a duo probably makes her a bit better. But unlike Breach, she can follow up on her own, make plays on her own, be a little bit more independent as well. She definitely is deserving of this A tier spot. Now, Brimstone is also a character in A, and there's a lot of reasons I put Brimstone here. Number one, he's like the best controller to flex to because he's simple. You don't need to know a lot of how to play smokes. There's like not a very high failure rate on just doing your job on Brim. I think he's a great smoker to learn when you like have other characters you play, but sometimes you need to fill. Brimstone can be perfect for that. In addition to that, Molly is great at stalling. We talked about how strong forcing people to slow down and maybe even rotate off is. Molly's really great at that. Not to mention, if you want to learn lineups, that's an extra bit of value you can get forcing people off spikes, creating those no-win scenarios we talked about with Viper. People don't play at pace, so you get to get not only that, but your ultimate as well, clearing people off the spike, just really creating some no-win scenarios, securing rounds for your team, closing it out. Oftentimes as Brim, you're going to be the clutcher, and it's a character that gets to focus a lot on gunplay. You get to focus on hitting your shots. You don't have to worry about hitting a flash, swinging a corner, making the shot also harder on yourself too. Yes, you're blinding people so they're not shooting back, but you're also making it so that you're actively swinging, your crosshairs moving. You're not someone that just gets to be really calm and collected with their aim. There's a lot that Brimstone lets you focus on that other characters don't get to focus on nearly as much. He gets to hit shots in a really isolated situation, and I think that's great for your mechanical development. I think Brimstone overall, just a great character, a really great character to have in your pool, and I can't recommend him enough. Now, of course, Jett is an A tier, and Jett is great for a lot of reasons. Being the best entry onto site, being able to smoke a site, dash into it, really just opens up a ton of sites, and oftentimes being the person that is willing to just lay themselves out there so that their team can stumble onto site is important. And the more value you can get when doing that, practicing doing that often, that's going to be really good for your development because you're going to do that in suboptimal situations. You're going to get better and better as you start to climb. On top of that, knives can just be a great clutch factor. Jett's also really great with eco weapons in a way that other characters aren't. From the sheriff to the marshal to the operator, if we're talking about more expensive weapons, Jett gets to take fights and then potentially de-peak, play aggressive in a way that other characters can't. And yeah, Jett is just great in pretty much every single composition and gives you the opportunity to carry pretty much every single game you're in. There are going to be some other duels you could play. ISO, Yoru, Neon, that might be a little bit more flashy, attack the game in a little bit of a different way. Jett plays very consistent, plays very reliable, and really taxes you on the fundamentals of Valorant, the fundamentals of your mechanics, the fundamentals of your engagement. And I think that she's just a great character for you to pick up and play in any ELO. Now, I'm putting Reyna here, but I don't necessarily think that she's better than any of the other characters in A tier. I just kind of threw her in here. And I have some pros and cons about Reyna in low ELO. The biggest thing is Reyna becomes far more simplified than other characters are when we talk about the strategy of the game. If you want to isolate your learning and focus most on mechanics, focus most on gunfights, Reyna is a great character because you can get away with a lot because you're hitting your shots, you're mechanically well, but the problem is also with just that, where as you're trying to learn and develop, you're gonna just kind of constantly come to this conclusion that your aim was the problem, the reason that you lost a particular gun duel. You fight a 1v2, a 1v4, and you lose and you die, and you're like, oh man, if I would have just dinked one or two of them and then, you know, faded away, I would have been good. But the reality of it is you should have taken a better fight. And I think that Reyna simultaneously has it so that if you focus on very specific things, you can succeed with her and carry in a way that no other character can, but also doesn't teach you some other fundamentals about the game. Now, if you plan to just play Reyna forever, by all means, that's fine. But I will say that if you plan to like try to get better at Valorant in a broader sense, a game sense oriented sense, Reyna might not be your best character. But if you want to have a character that just allows you to grind out your mechanics, focus in, and then get direct results relative to those mechanics, Reyna could be that perfect character for you. And everyone knows just how hard she can carry in the right hands. Next up, we do have Fade. Fade is phenomenal of a character, really powerful, especially in low elo. I really love the fact that she can clear out close angles. A lot of people like to play cheeky angles, be really aggressive. Fade forces a lot of cooldowns off of people, punishes Reynas and random characters that stand in off angles, just expecting people to peek into them so that they can use their cheeky ability and just get away. Fade punishes all of that. Most people are not going to react to the eye in time. You're going to get a lot of great info off the character. And yeah, Fade's just really great, really phenomenal. Information in general, any information gathering character is going to be great in low elo where people are playing out of position or people are not actively playing in positions that can deny the information gathering ability, whether it's a dart or an eye. So yeah, Fade is just really, really great. But the next character we got to talk about is Raze. And yeah, I know that Raze keeps getting hit with like nerfs here and there, but the reality of it is Raze is powerful. Getting to take space on site, have great mobility, have a lethal ultimate that can create some momentum, and be able to gather information to take more advantage fights. That's a pretty diverse kit, and I think also Raze just fights in a different way than a lot of other characters. Being able to take verticality and change up the angle, being able to force people, boop them a little bit while you take a fight with them, while you swing them, throwing a blast peck at them, setting up an unfair fight, or forcing people to swing into you with your paint shells. Raze just gets to use her abilities in a way that helps you generate advantage fights in a consistent way. And I would say in this current meta, Raze is actually just underloved and underplayed. Still a great character that really also showcases how strong great movement could be up against players that aren't the best mechanically. Even great mechanical players have a hard time hitting really good mobility characters. And I understand that Neon's getting a lot of the limelight right now, but I think Raze is going to be better in low elo the vast majority of the time. More reliable than Neon in low elo by far. Now we're moving up to the S tier. These are like the best characters that I would say right now in low elo. If you want to have the easiest time climbing, these are the characters that are going to help you develop the best and are just the best to play right now to carry. First up is Sova. Sova is just going to have consistently high impact across all ranks. He's a great character to learn early. He's a great character to learn later. Ultimate is phenomenal for punishing rushes, denying the enemy pushes, and getting kills just flat out. Everyone knows how strong his dart is just for gathering information. For many of the same reasons we talked about Fade, gathering info. Info is king in low elo and pretty much any elo, but really you could abuse it in low elo. Just doing simple high up darts when people are playing open space expecting to get free kills. They're gonna die for free. You're gonna get that free information. It's great. Shocks, being able to clear out Cypher trips, being able to clear out Killjoy utility, also great. Drone, clearing out close corners that people like to play in. All of this combined just creates a character that is able to get a lot of value. Even if you can't aim at all, you're gonna get a lot of value. As you get better and better with your utility, as you get better and better with your aim, Sova can just take over an entire lobby. I really do think that he's probably the character that has given everyone the most bang for their buck learning him. Like, spending the time and learning Sova now is just going to be a great investment, in my opinion, in just a character that you can play forever and is still going to be consistently good and strong. Definitely deserving of an S tier placement. Next up is Gekko, and specifically Gekko would not be an S tier for higher elo or a meta tier list, but in lower elo, Gekko is freaking baller. Having flashes that can't be turned on, having flashes that someone would have to react to, means that in low elo, people are just getting flashed. You're swinging them, you're killing them, you're grabbing your flash again, you're doing it again. It's freaking great. Not to mention being able to have your abilities plant for you while you have an extra gun up, being able to use your ultimate to gather info, stun people, get free kills, set up a no-win situation for an enemy in a 1v1. There's so much about Gekko that's just phenomenal. I think he's the best initiator if we're talking about specifically low elo play. Maybe one of the best characters in the entire game for low elo play. And a character that also is still really good as you climb the ranks. So he's a great character to learn now. He's a great character that will carry you later. Just make sure that you're not neglecting some of your gunplay fundamentals as you play this character. I understand you're going to get a lot of free kills and free gunfights with this character. Doesn't mean you can neglect all your mechanics, because eventually people are going to be able to respond to Gekko's utility, and you need to utilize them responding as like a mess up at their crosshair, and that you can still take an advantage fight that way. Moving up one, we have Killjoy, and Killjoy is just still the best sentinel in low elo. I know I say this term a lot, intrinsic value, just the value that you get without like really deserving it or without doing anything. Like you set up a proper setup with Killjoy and you're already doing so much with the utility that people are going to fall victim to, people are going to die to. I've done a VOD review over a Killjoy player on this channel that was in silver, and none of their setups were proper, and they were still in silver. None of their setups, not a single setup was proper. I'm telling you right now, learn the proper setups on Killjoy, look at some of our guides here or on the website, and just shut teams down. Shut down their rushes, punish them, get free kills. Killjoy has so much power in her utility that demands players to play properly around it, and it's kind of like a litmus test. It's like, here's a litmus test. You can't play around proper Killjoy setups, you're gonna just never win against the Killjoy. Learn those and you win. You don't even need to shoot a single bullet. I think Killjoy is probably the easiest character to climb with zero mechanical skill. And if you add mechanical skill on top of that, you could just, sky's the limit. Killjoy is so strong. Learn Killjoy, don't sleep on Killjoy. Fantastic character. And next up, we actually have Phoenix receiving some massive buffs, being able to touch a fire and heal up, get the full duration of heal. Also being able to have his flash on his signature so you can get another one after 2 kills. Phoenix has always been a great low elo character because he can do a little bit of everything. He can clear out a corner, he can force his way onto site with a wall, he can flash off an off sight line, he can do a little bit of everything, and now he gets to have an extra bit of sustain. Not to mention his win condition, aka his ultimate, is something that you can farm incredibly easily. There's a lot of momentum to the character when you start popping off and getting some kills, being able to ult, channel that into another ult, and just take over a whole lobby. I think these buffs really put Phoenix way over the top, where he was already like an A, S tier low elo character. Now he's just so freaking strong. I really think that if you want to just play a character that gives you a chance to win regardless of the composition, like if you were just gonna one trick a character, I think Phoenix is probably the best character to one trick because he's good in pretty much any composition in any environment. Phoenix can do a little bit of everything, can really help to cover for people messing up. You know, your controller messes up a smoke or dies early, Phoenix can still cover for that. Your initiator dies and you're trying to enter on a site, Phoenix can help you clear some corners. Phoenix just gets to do a lot, and I really love that aspect of him. Giving you what you need in any situation is great and perfect, ideal even for low elo. Now, the top of S tier, I do have to give this to Clove. This character is actually just absurd for ranked play in general, but in low elo, even better. The utility is really simple but effective. And Clove can be very aggressive, especially when you have your ult, being able to clear the way, take a trade with the teammate, get resurrected, and then clear the rest of the site. That's super strong on Clove. Being able to smoke and allow your team to enter onto site, especially when we're talking about low elo, being a good controller is a big deal because you don't really want to, one, have a lobby with no controllers, or two, have someone fill a controller that is not gonna smoke properly. Like just having a good smoker, really big deal. And in addition to all these things, Clove gets to still do their job even when they die, and that means that you're not going to get punished as much. Like a lot of other controllers need to kind of walk on eggshells, be a lot more passive than Clove. Clove can be that top frag, take over a lobby, really do the job. The value that you need at a controller is being accomplished by you. So you're like a team-oriented character, but also a carry character packed up into one. I really think that Clove is just a great character that you can play from low elo all the way to Radiant. Really great character. So yeah, I would definitely suggest Clove. But really, any of these characters can get you to the highest elos of play. These are just our recommendations for the best low elo characters. Let me know if you agree or disagree in the comments down below. But definitely check out the SkillCapped website because you need better aim. Regardless of what these characters you're picking, you need to have phenomenal aim. And our Aim God course is going to give you everything you need to develop your aim step by step so that within just 30 days, you can have fantastic aim and easily climb no matter what character you pick on this list. So definitely check it out right now in the links down below. Thank you, and we'll see you next time.